Hey man, it's an ugly raining day up here, so we went and visited an old 19th century plantation and inn nearby, just to look around and be reminded what the old ways were like. So we're gonna see if you can see that porch behind me. That's a porch. So we're gonna just look at some of the highlights here. Nothing huge. Just show you a little bit about this old inn that's not too far from our house. That reminds us of the old days and what it was like to live back then. So we're at this 18th century, 19th century. So the 1900s were the 20th century. So it's the 1800s would have been the 19th century. 19th century. It's not a farmhouse. It was a large plantation built in 1815. It's just a rainy, ugly day here, and so we got out of the house. I'm supposed to be making gun videos, but instead we came to this historic site, and been here before, but just always amazing to see and be reminded about what life used to be like. And this, for me, this is kind of the shock and awe moment when you look at these beams and you realize these were hewn by hand with axes and adze, and each one of these little marks here represents a stroke of an adze by some man. And all these joints here were done completely by hand without modern tools, even without tape measures. And they got all these joints perfect, and they shed water, and they've lasted. Let's see, 1815, 1915 is 100. It's like 202 years now, 203 years old that this has been here. It's just amazing to me. We're going to take a look at a couple of different things here, though. But this was the old blacksmith shop. Lord knows how long it's took them to make. If you look up here, you can see these are the beams for the second story, whatever, if you might call it, whatever they're going to call that attic up there. But those beams are laid across this beam and notched into the top beam, and then that's what's the floor for the second story. I love this style of construction. This is amazing to me. Absolutely amazing, the man hours and craftsmanship that went into this. Anywho, we're going to look at some other stuff. So this was a cauldron on a fire pit, where you see the two boys up there. That was a chimney, and they'd start a fire underneath the cauldron there, and would make soap and wash clothes. And I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't scald hogs in there too to get the hair off. Uh-oh, we're having all kinds of technical difficulties today. But Mariah wants one of those for her laundry. Alright, so here's where the women would have spent most of their time. This is the kitchen underneath the dining room. I'm sorry the light's not great, man. Here's the,
See a thing.
Yeah, giant fire pit. There's the lovely woman who would have been bent over the fire pit sweating. I don't even know what most of these implements are. I guess that's just a poker, some ladles. Beats me, I don't know. But look at this. We got butter churns over here, presses. I'm assuming you press, well, at least apples I know, but here's something looks like you can't really tell it all. Let me see if I can get better light. You can't see it, man, I'm sorry, but you could put whatever you're grinding up in here, you could grind it, and it ground it right down into the press. And this actually doesn't look dissimilar to our kitchen. But that's because I haven't given Mariah much to work with. I don't even know what these are. Some kind of pancake maker? I don't know. Just absolutely amazing, the labor that went into everything. Look at these beams. These beams are actually not hand hewn, but supposedly most all the framing is original. And if you look, that's a real old style of building there with those notches on that. I'm going to call that a sill, but I don't think that's probably the right term. So maybe those came out of a saw pit, which actually may be harder even than hand hewing, where you got two guys, one on top of a frame, one underneath a frame, and they're using a crosscut saw at a to saw out these beams, these timbers. And the poor guy underneath just all day long was pushing that saw back up, and the sawdust just falling down on him. It was miserable work. Of course, you know, there's no way around the fact, unfortunately, most of this labor would have been done by slaves in 1815 Georgia. It's just the reality. Anyway, this actually was an inn, and everyone would have been fed out of this kitchen. Although there may have been a summer kitchen off of the house. Alright, I don't know if you can see it or not, but this railing all the way up to that bend is all from one log. Look, this bend, that's all one piece of wood. And you know what, it's not, I said bent, it's not actually bent. At the bottom I think it might be bent a little bit, but this is just carved. I don't even know how to stay together. My understanding is when you do straight grain cuts like that, they're real, what's the word? Fragile. But it stayed like this for, this part of the inn I think was enlarged in like the 1830s. But still, look at that. One whole piece of wood. And I'm sure they just cut a 1-inch board or a 2-inch board and milled that out of it. But still, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Let's see how long that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So those are about 16-inch treads. 16-inch times 12, you guys do the math. Still impressive, because if that was one board, you know, that's like 2 foot up there. So that's 2 foot wide, 12 foot long, and if you can't see in this light, but it's completely clear. There's no knots in it at all. So that tells you what kind of timber was around in the old days.
I don't think there's enough.
And intricate labor was not just the domain of men back then. Of course, I think men may have done a lot of weaving, but you know, look at this. This is 2 of the 3 looms we've seen here, and just innumerable spinning wheels. I think we've probably seen a spinning wheel in every corner. I don't know if all these spinning wheels were original to the plantation, or if they've been donated since the state took it over and turned it into a historic site. But look at this. Each one of those strings had to be set by hand. Then each one of those strings had to be woven through by hand. And then you still only get a piece of cloth about 2 foot wide. And then you got to sew it all together. After you've grown the cotton or the sheep, slaughtered the sheep, picked the cotton, you know, cleaned it, carded it, spun it, to finally get some thread, some yarn. Then you can do all this to spin it into cloth. Then you can hand sew it into clothes. Oh, that says these looms are original to site, so there you go. Don't touch, please. I mean, we have no idea the labor it took back then just to produce the clothes we wear, let alone, you know, all the other extras and everything. Of course, those are authentic screwed-in pressure-treated porch, early American period. Now, if you look real careful, you can see the authentic early American torque spit. This was a feature of only the highest class houses. It was very hard to cast these torque spit screws back then, but they were able to do it. And of course, they would also hand pressure treat the lumber to go along with those early American authentic torque spit screws. Amazing craftsmanship. It's a style of building we can still barely approximate today.